Hi guys, this is Teresa LaFour, your instructor here for 141 Medical Terminology. I wanted to go over a couple things in this first chapter, but first of all, I thought we needed to cover how to access your ebook if you are not familiar with that. And it's basically real simple. Once you're in Cengage, and you can access Cengage by clicking on any of the Cengage links in your chapter. The blue book is your ebook, so if you just click on it, and you can click up here on this to bring up the full book so you don't have to look at a miniaturized version of it. But anyway, this is how you can access your ebook. And then it's real simple to go to whatever you need to go to. So let's take a look at this first chapter and go from there. I forgot to tell you, you can access the chapters by clicking on the index over here. So we're going to look at Chapter 1, Introduction to Medical Terminology. And this will pull up everything you want to look at in your book. So first of all, it's going to give you some general information. And one of the first things you need to work on is making your flashcards to help you learn these word parts. And you can use index cards, you could just cut up pieces of paper, you can actually use the little bitty index cards that you can flip, whatever works for you. But start building your cards because you're going to need to make new cards for every chapter we cover. Not just in here, but also in part 2, so that you can understand how to put words together. If you look at a word, how to break it down into its parts so you can tell what it means and also how to spell it. Because that's one of the main things with medical terminology is you have to know how to spell. And if you spell it wrong on any of the tests, then it's wrong. Because you can change one letter in a word and it means something totally different in here. So be very careful with your spelling. But at the very beginning here, it's going to give you some of the word parts. So this is your start of your flashcards. So you would put algia right here on one side of your card, and on the other side you would have pain and suffering, and just go on down this list right here. This is not every one of them that are covered in the chapter, but it gives you the main ones here on this first page. So make sure that you start making your cards with this. As you can see, some of them have a little dash in front, some have the dash behind. And that's basically part of the breakdown here. If it is a prefix or a suffix. If it's a prefix, that dash comes after it. If it's a suffix, the dash comes before. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a little bit. Make sure on your hyper and hypo, you see it's excessive, increase, deficient, decrease, not up or down. That means something totally different. So make sure that you use the words that's in here. And that's how you're tested, is on these words, these particular ones. Rage, one thing you need to make sure you understand there, it's not just regular bleeding. It is abnormal and excessive. You need to have one of those words in there. And it's just not, if you cut yourself and you start bleeding, you're not going to have like for this particular one, rage, you would have hemorrhage. So just cutting yourself is not a hemorrhage. It's if it's excessively bleeding, then you're hemorrhaging. Make sure that you put, for Rafi, it's surgical suturing. If it's just a regular suture, that has a different meaning from a surgical suture. And then it has some more words that you need to start learning. And this gives you the pronunciations. So if you break it down into parts, abdominocentesis. So this is abdominocentesis. And by the way, when we start trying to figure out what these words mean and we break them down by their word parts, you need to read them backwards for the word part to find out the definition of the term. View these. You can click on the little symbol here to the left, and it will give you the pronunciation, because pronunciation is one of the activities you will have to do in here. The pronunciation assignments need to be done on the phone app. It just works so much better than the one on the computer. You may have some problems with it. For some reason, it's extremely picky, and if you have the slightest accent, it doesn't like it. And even if you pronounce it correctly, it just doesn't like it for some reason. So if you use the phone app, and you can download that, there's information in the course on that, it will be very helpful for you. So there's a bunch of these that you need to flip through there. And it talks about your terms and how to look at these things. And knowing your word parts is going to make or break you in this course. You need to know those, because without it, you can't figure it out, okay? So there are 4 types of word parts. You have the word root, which has the basic meaning of the term. And in the example, it talks about the word root for stomach is gaster. So that's the main term. The combining form is the root plus a vowel, and it's usually an I, but it can be something else. Suffixes at the end indicates the procedure, condition, disorder, or disease. And prefixes at the beginning usually says location, time, number, or status. So word roots, you can use these to combine with a vowel, I or O, or could be some of the others, but usually those two. And it talks about the body part usually. So it's talked about gaster. Gaster is your stomach. So that's the body part it is. There are word roots and combining forms indicating color. So cyan means blue. So think of cyanosis. If you have cyanosis, your fingertips are blue, your lips are blue. So cyan means blue. Erythra means red. So if you're talking about erythrocyte, that's a red blood cell. Cyte means cell. So read it backwards. You're looking at cyte for cell, erythra for red. So that lets you know that this is a red blood cell. Leuc means white. So leukemia, for example, affects the white blood cells. So that's how you get leuc. Melon is the dark pigment. So if you have if you get a tan, you have more melanin in your skin. So melanin determines what how dark of skin you have. If you're real light, you don't have much melanin. If you're dark, you have a lot of melanin. It can also mean some type of abnormal condition, because think about it. If some of your if you have pigmented skin where you have dark spots, that could be an indication of a disease. So your combining forms are those root terms plus a vowel, usually an I or O, like I said. So look at gaster. So gaster is stomach. There's the O is the combining vowel. And then enteritis is small intestine. So you would actually read this backwards. So small intestine and stomach. So itis is inflammation. Inflammation of small intestine and stomach. Suffix is at the end. Helps complete the term. Could be a procedure, condition, disease, or disorder. Talks about suffixes as noun endings. I'm going to let you look over that one in particular. There is a bunch of suffixes that mean pertaining to, and you will need to know all of these and what they mean. So put these on your flip cards. Ac means pertaining to, so you put ac on one side, pertaining to on the back side. Then you would do that for each one of these, because you're going to need to know that all of these mean pertaining to. This is a group of suffixes that mean abnormal conditions, so you'll need to put these on your cards. So iasis would be on one side of your card, and abnormal condition would be on the other side. And you'll need to know all of those. And then here's a group of other suffixes here. And if you do not have these on there from the beginning, make sure you get these in your on your cards. So stenosis means abnormal narrowing, sclerosis, abnormal hardening, necrosis is tissue death, malacia is abnormal softening. So make sure you get all those put on your cards. And here's some more that are related to procedures, so you'll need to make sure you get each one of these on your cards. I would take a look at some of the words that it helps make and see how you can break those down. Arthroscopy is broken down to arthur and scopy. And scopy means to visually examine. Arthur means a joint. So arthroscopy is a scope of a joint, usually pertaining to knees, but can be shoulders or other joints too. And please be careful, if it has an SCOPY at the end, scopy, it's arthroscopy, not arthroscope or arthroscopy. You got to make sure you get your pronunciation correct on those. And here's a few more to put on your card. These are the double R's. And then prefix. Here's a bunch of them that you need to put on your cards. These, it tells you that they describe direction, quantity, size, and amount. You just have to basically learn these. You know, dexter means right side. Micro means small. Mega means large or giant. And make sure that you put all these on your cards. And here's more. Just kind of pointing out where you're going to find what to put on your cards in the chapter. You have to actually go through the chapter. You can't just go by what's at the very beginning. So here's a lot of different other ones too. Rind means nose. Ot means ear. Those type ones. Lith means stone, so make sure you get these in there. So if you can break those words down, so if you have an arthroscopy, if you can spell arthro and you can spell scopy, then you can spell arthroscopy. So that's the easy way of making sure you know how to spell the word correctly, if you can break down the word parts. And this kind of gives you some information on how to look at the spelling of some unusual words, and it'll tell you we're going to basically talk more about these in other chapters. Let's see here. Let's flip all through this. If you do look it up on the internet, be very careful because it may not have the exact same meaning that we're looking for in here. So use the meanings that are in your chapter. Make sure you practice your pronunciation. You want to sound like you know what you're talking about when you start work. So you have to know how to pronounce these words. So practice the pronunciation. See what you need to do to make sure that you can pronounce these correctly. For example, this is edema, not edema. So you need to practice that pronunciation. And it gives it to you in the parentheses here also, but you can click on the little symbol next to the word and it'll play how to pronounce it also. I can't talk today. Let's see here. And remember that if your physician you're working for is from a foreign country, they're going to have a different pronunciation. Especially when you're looking at British English versus American English. The pronunciation on some of the words is very different. All right. And how to make these singular or plural is very different. Read over that in your chapter pretty good. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It just is. You just have to learn what the single and plural forms of the words are. Then there are a bunch of words that you need to also know about how to describe disease conditions. What is a sign? What is a diagnosis? What's a symptom? A differential diagnosis, a syndrome, and a prognosis. You will need to know all of these, not just in this class, but you're going to use that in your other classes too. Words that sound alike: artery, ether, and Arthur. So you got to make sure you spell these correctly. All of these should be on your flashcards also. And then it gives you a little bit on abbreviations and how they're used. QD means every day. QOD, every other day. U is for a unit. And your book's going to have that information in the back of the chapters once we get into more of the anatomy and physiology parts. And then it's got some exercises back here. So most of those are already, they're in your chapter to do through MindTap. So you don't need to worry about this back part here. So make sure, the big thing you need to do for chapter 1 is make sure that you read all of it, that you're writing everything down, that you're writing, building up your flashcards. You're going to need to fill those out for every single chapter. Have somebody work with you, whether it's a family member or somebody that you can get online with and practice with each other. You can contact one of the students in your course if you'd like. But make sure that you practice these. Take time to work on it every day, because it's pure memorization. You've got to memorize them and learn them. You're going to carry this with you for the rest of your career. So you need to make sure that you get this foundation and get all these word parts in your brain. And a lot of them are Greek and Latin, so it can be a little difficult there. So create your flashcards and practice, practice, practice. If you have any questions, let me know.